Welcome to Fearless Females, where ambition meets resilience. Meet your guide, Lori Jones, president of Fidelis Wealth Advisors. Join her and remarkable women executives as they uncover the triumphs and transformative moments shaping extraordinary careers. Ready to be fearless? Let the journey begin.
So just a quick shout out to our sponsor, Fidelis Wealth Advisors. We're so grateful that we get to do this podcast and they make that possible for us. So today I'm interviewing Corrine, and she's the CEO of Know Your Lemons. And I just love this organization. She makes a really hard concept, breast cancer, easy, relatable, fun. Lemons are such happy, bright, pretty fruit, and she markets it in a way that helps you remember. I know a lot of times that I just forget. Let's be honest here. A lot of my clients come in and ask me questions, and then they'll call me back 2 months later and say, I totally forgot what you told me. I didn't remember. It wasn't exciting. It wasn't fun. But this helps make the idea of detecting breast cancer early both fun and relatable and memorable. And I just love what she's doing. So I'm so excited for you to hear her today. Let's get to it. Well, good morning. We're here today with Corrine Ellsworth-Beaumont, and she is CEO of Know Your Lemons. I'm so excited that she's joined us today. I've really been looking forward to learning a little bit more about your journey, Corrine. So thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks, Lori. I'm happy to be here and have this conversation with you.
My first question is always, I'm a reader. I love reading anything, everything. What is your favorite book?
Ooh, my favorite books are paintings. I love to study paintings. It's really hard for me to pick a favorite, but I'd have to say I really enjoy abstract art. So I love seeing new ways of looking at things. And yes, I'm a very visual person, which you may have already guessed with all of my design work. But
I love that. I love the idea of paintings as books because there is a lot. You can kind of read what the author is trying to say through words, but through a painting, you can kind of read what the artist is trying to tell you.
Exactly. Especially with the painting, because a photograph is documenting what is existing. Mm-hmm. But a painting is you have to make all those decisions of where things go and why did you choose this color and where is it? Why is it in that location? Why is this person doing this thing or this object's there? And with abstract, it's even further removed from that because it's more about kind of the emotions of the piece. So my favorite kind of grouping of paintings is Rothko's Red series.
I'll have to look at it. I am almost entirely impressionistic art. So, and I can basically draw a stick figure. So
there you go.
so I am in awe and impressed with anyone that can create things. It's really a talent that I don't possess and truly admire. So tell me a little bit about what you do and how you kind of got to where you're at, a little bit about your journey to where you are.
Yeah. So I'm the CEO and founder of the Know Your Lemons Foundation, and we are a global nonprofit that is focused on early detection for breast cancer. And we do this through raising awareness and education about symptoms, the importance of screening, and being able to know how to manage your risk and make sure that you are having all the information that you need in order to improve your chances for early detection. So breast cancer is the most common cancer in the world. Mm-hmm. 1 in 8 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer in their lifetime. And so it's a really important topic. For me, how this began was my own family. Both of my grandmothers died from breast cancer.
I'm so sorry.
When my second grandmother died, it was when I was starting my master's degree in graphic design, and I was needing to pick up a project for the next 3 years to focus on. And at the same time, I realized I think this is a family health issue that I don't know anything about. So I started researching more about breast health and realized that as a designer, I could make this more engaging, more interesting for people to learn about. It shouldn't take 2 family members dying for us to learn about breast health, but that was the bar that had been set. So I started working on what would be some engaging ways of bringing up the topic, knowing that breasts are taboo. We can't just display breasts openly in public. Cancer is also a topic that carries a lot of fear. So how could I design this in a way that's friendly and accessible and inviting? And so that's when I started on this project of figuring out what could be a good metaphor for breast. And that's when, after looking at lots of different things, I came across a lemon is a really great way of being a visual stand-in for a breast, because lemons are cheerful. They have nipples, they have pores, they have skin. And if you cut a lemon navel to navel, it looks a lot like breast anatomy with milk ducts and things. And then a cancerous lump often feels hard like a lemon seed. And the longer cancer develops, the more immovable it becomes. So it became a really great metaphor for explaining information not only on how breast cancer can look, but also how breast cancer can feel. So there's the one symptom of a hard lump, but it can also be a thickened area in the breast as well. But there are 12 symptoms of breast cancer that people don't know about. And our campaign teaches people about that. So how I developed the campaign was I started this as my master's project. I received my MFA at Utah State University. Knew that there would be more that I wanted to do with it. I wanted to be able to educate a global audience. So I left my job, moved to London, and got a PhD in design thinking for healthcare, specifically looking at how to improve global education around breast health. So lived in the UK for 12 years, became a dual citizen, got married, had my daughter there, got divorced. And after that, started my charity after losing my really close friend to breast cancer when she was in her 30s. So that I was a professor in London teaching in entrepreneurship and marketing and branding, and decided to leave my job as a single mom and start the charity with my own savings. What's really exciting is that today we've reached 1.85 billion people around the world through our online campaign. We have print materials in 34 languages, 35 now, actually. And we have almost 1,000 trained volunteer educators in, I think, 62 countries right now. So we're growing really fast. We're partnering with organizations, nonprofits to help them expand their education reach with the people they serve. But we're also working with companies in doing corporate wellness programs, because breast health is not something we learn about at school. Breast cancer happens to working women. It can also happen to men. And being able to find it early can make all the difference in surviving it. It can also mean it's a smaller burden on companies if their employees are educated and they're able to get diagnosed at a really early stage. You know, if it's diagnosed at the early stage, it doesn't require chemotherapy, those sorts of things. And so, we're really working with companies with our corporate wellness program to help incentivize employees to make sure that they're doing their annual mammograms, that they know what their risk level is so that they're getting access to all the tools that they need to be able to take care of themselves, and also to know what the symptoms are. So if something shows up, they know how to report it right away and how to negotiate that conversation with the doctor to make sure that they're understood and referred as they should be. So that's how we operate today. That's what we do.
I love that. That is one fearless move, going ahead and maybe starting quitting with a daughter, and how did that? Were you just, I feel so passionately about this. We just have to do it.
Yeah, honestly, when we have negative life events that happen to us, we have to look for how we build positives in other ways. We can't control every area of our lives, but something I could control was making sure I was in a working environment that really helped me feel fulfilled. And so I did some freelance work to keep the bills going, and then I worked on this full time. My daughter would play under my desk as I would work.
How old was she?
She was 18 months old.
Oh, yeah. That's about the right age.
Yeah, I called her my undersecretary. So.
I love it. And I love the idea of making these really complex ideas very simple and relatable. You might imagine as a financial advisor that finance is neither fun nor simple. And so the idea of taking these really big concepts that are a little bit scary and making them into something that everybody can relate to and understand. I love that you did it with lemons that are so cheerful and happy.
Yeah. And something that's really interesting is lemons are used around the world, but in some countries, lemons are green. So we have a green Know Your Lemons campaign, depending on where in the world it's being used. So it adapts pretty well. But yeah, being able to design something that has helped save people's lives is pretty humbling and exciting. I really have the best job in the world of being able to use my skills as a designer to educate and save lives. It's really wonderful.
And that's neat that each new language or new country that you enter to raise awareness around breast cancer, it's not only fulfilling for you, but it makes a difference in this world. We have so many people that are affected. I have clients that dear loved ones that I just cry when they tell me, hey, we found a lump or we have to get radiation or something like that.
Yeah.
So it must be very nice to have that fulfilling position affect so many lives.
Yeah, it really is wonderful.
So tell me, what is the best investment you made in yourself in this journey? Was there something that you can look back on? Oh, I'm so glad I did that. That made such a difference in where I am today.
I think investing in yourself is really important. I think there's a couple of different ways we can invest in ourselves financially. I had to invest in myself quite literally and say, I'm going to be the best return on my money. Nonprofits are a little bit different because your ROI is saving lives and not necessarily money that's coming back to you, right? But a nonprofit is run the same as any other business. We just don't have shareholders. And we have a very specific purpose that we're trying to meet a need of the community. So that's the difference between a nonprofit and a business, but both need money to operate. Both need talented people that are working there. Being able to attract that talent requires funds. And so I'd say really investing the time and being patient to let things develop and grow has been great. For a long time, it was just me and another person running the charity. And now I've got a team of 9, which is really amazing. So it's fun to see it grow and expand around the world. The other thing that I do just for me is I get a massage every month. I have my standing appointment. I do not cancel this appointment where I physically take time out and do something because, especially when you have your own business and you work from home, you're always working. Yeah. And there's always something to do. And especially with this being global, this morning I had a meeting at 6:30 with Europe. And then if I have a meeting with Asia, that's 10 p.m. And so I can really let my day manage me instead of me managing my day. So finding these things that I enjoy that take me away from work is important. So a massage is great. It's just that little 1 hour.
Yeah.
I protect every month, right? And then you build that habit to be, okay, how can I protect other time and create boundaries for myself and things like that. So it's just a learning process as you recognize when you're starting to get burnt out or you're quite having the work-life balance you're looking for, right? It's seasonal. So
yeah. And that must be really hard, owning your own business and running and being in charge and especially when you want it to succeed so badly. How do you protect that? Are there other ways to keep that balance? Because I quite frankly fail at it, to tell you the truth.
I think we all fail at it, right? And the great thing again, work is something that you can somewhat control, right? You can say, ooh, if I spend 3 hours on this activity today, then I know I'm going to have this tangible output and something will have been accomplished, and we can measure our progress with work. With family, it's harder to measure that progress, right? It's usually the efforts you put in now might not pay dividends until much later on in life, right? So being able to kind of recognize that and see, hey, it can be very enticing to spend a lot of time on work because people are asking things of you. There are fires to put out, etc. And so managing that is really difficult. So I kind of have around Breast Cancer Awareness Month is October. It's my real busy season. I try to anticipate and prepare for as much as I can. But I've taught my daughter how to order pizza on DoorDash. Guess what? You're going to have some extra skills during this busy season. And what books can we get you interested in? Things like that. And then my house is messy and I'm like, that's okay. Because right now I'm doing this other thing. And so I can't do it all. So there are things that I deliberately say, I'm letting this go until I'm out of this.
Until you're out of the busy. I love that idea, that and giving yourself that kindness of saying, this is not, so what if my house is messy and my kid eats pizza 5 nights a week? Because I have done that before at my house.
Yeah.
Because what I'm building here, and I know it's not forever. I know it's, the month of October or a couple of months around here. Yeah, I love that.
Exactly. And something like, I grew up in a wonderful environment. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. She was really entrepreneurial. She made her own soaps. She taught piano lessons. So I was always hearing the piano in my house growing up. My dad is an inventor for farm equipment and also is a farmer. And so I was in this very kind of entrepreneurial household where everyone managed their own schedules, and as much as you can manage your own schedule as a farmer. I mean, the land owns you on that, let's be honest. Yeah. But I think seeing that like set up a really good example for me of just having this attitude of, well, if I can think it, I can make it and I can do it. So I think kind of recognizing that. But that being said, having to work full time, having to single parent, I'm like, am I damaging my child? Right? You wonder what the negative impacts of that are. Mm-hmm. And a couple of years ago, when my daughter was 8, I believe, she made me a Mother's Day card, and it was a picture of her and me and our little dog with a rainbow behind. And she wrote CEO's daughter.
Oh, that makes me so emotional.
And isn't that amazing? Isn't that so cute? Mm-hmm. And that's when I realized I'm setting a great example for her of you can do anything. And it took me a while for me to really fully put on that mantle of CEO. Mm-hmm. I don't come from a traditional business background. I don't have an accounting specialty or anything like that. Learning how to manage people. What I've realized in it is the main thing you need is passion. Mm-hmm. And when you want your business to succeed, you're going to develop those skills as you go. You're going to run into problems that you learn how to address, reach out to others to ask how they manage certain situations. Having those mentors is really important, but don't hold ourselves back when we're thinking about, is this something I can do or not? If you have the passion for it, then you are capable. You can build those skills in, you can learn things over time. And I think really believing in yourself and not holding back on what you can achieve is so important.
Yeah, I love that idea. Fearless. I have an admin in our office, Sky, and she tells me all the time we can do hard things. And so whenever I have something that's just a little bit scary that I'm not sure whether I'm going to be successful, I channel Sky, we can do hard things.
Exactly. Definitely.
I love that thought. So what is the worst advice you've ever received? And did you take it? Did you learn something from it? Talk to me about that.
Ooh, worst advice.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of worst advice. So much good advice is coming to mind. But one piece of advice I was given specifically was that I didn't have what it took to be a CEO. Mm-hmm. And I should hire that out to someone else. and I had that belief myself for a while because I just saw myself as a designer. Uh-huh. I'm a graphic designer. I'm creative. I'm scrappy. I can use technology, which means I can build a e-commerce site fairly easily. I have the tools to create a business, but I don't have necessarily the business skills. Mm-hmm. But when I started to kind of get rid of those labels of I'm just a designer or this or that, that's when I really kind of started to step into my own power and realize I was capable. And I just this week have been thinking about that conversation I had with someone who said, I'm a real expert in these things. And I've done a lot of change management for a lot of companies. And with my assessment of you really are someone who would enjoy being CEO and you don't quite have the skills, et cetera. She says, that's not to say it couldn't happen, but that's really what she was saying,
Yeah.
And from her point of view, from what she could see, that, that's what was on the page for her. But when I was able to let go of that and recognize you don't have to be, business really is an open playground for a lot of people. And if the only people we have managing businesses are accountants, then
boring.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be looked at very much from a financial perspective only, right?
Yeah.
But if you have a designer that's running a charity, then that's going to be a whole different way of looking at the problem and stuff like that. And not saying you don't need accountants and things like that involved in this stuff, but we need variety in the kind of people that are leading businesses.
Yeah, because it brings new ideas into the space, new ideas for what business means and how to create it. I've talked to several women entrepreneurs who are doing new things about work-life balance and trying to make their businesses into something that they can be proud of. And that looks different for everybody. So I absolutely agree. How did you get past you're not going to be a good CEO? How did you get from there to say, hey, that's not true. I can be?
Well, I had to step into the role or close down the charity. And so it's all right, let's learn this. And so I learned how to read a profit and loss statement and started learning how to develop my board more and, those sorts of things. You just learn them one thing at a time. If I went back to redo things, I would have started things out differently now that I've got this expertise and this experience to look back on. But it's part of learning and growing. There are things that we've started this year that I thought, why haven't we been doing this the whole time? But you learn one piece at a time, and you kind of gather that wisdom as you go, and still learning a lot of things. So
yeah, and there are a lot of resources out there too. I found through this podcast that there are a lot of women that are so willing to share their knowledge and what they've done to help others along that path.
Yeah, absolutely. And being an entrepreneurship professor, so my role was helping students identify business opportunities and create business plans around that and understand their revenue stream and understand their customer base and things like that. So, I did have a lot of understanding on how to set up a business and the entrepreneurship side of it, but then fully recognizing these are my weak areas and these are my strengths, and how do I use my strengths to kind of make up for some of these weaknesses, right? And so, yeah, being able to advise students on their business ideas and thinking about things really gave me a lot of perspective in how to approach my own business, having to help other people sort out their thoughts and ideas and plans. The big thing I learned is, with a business, we tend to go for the shiny things. So we're really excited to get the logo or the business card or the website up, or the pretty packaging. But maybe we haven't quite thought through the pricing model very much. Do people actually want this thing that I'm so in love with? That's a really big question. How do you test that before you put a lot of money into that? One really interesting story that I read was someone that was looking at, this was back when online retail was just taking off. And no one was really doing online shoes because you need to try on a shoe before you can buy it online.
Yeah.
And so their concept was, are people even willing to buy shoes online? So what they did is they posted shoes online. And then when someone bought it, they went next door to the shoe store, purchased it, and mailed it out. And they said they weren't making any money off of that. They just wanted to see, are people willing to order shoes online?
What a creative way.
Right, stuff like that. Because it can be great to be, here's this beautiful logo, and we've got this amazing name for our shoe shop, and we're going to have the best shoes, and this is our audience that we're wanting to go after and everything like that. But if in the end people aren't comfortable purchasing shoes online, then it doesn't matter any of that. So you have to kind of recognize that they're the shiny objects that are really fun, but that's not the business. And how do you make sure you answer those kind of risky, how do you mitigate your risks with your business by testing it without using a lot of money or resources or time? So I just thought that was a really smart example of how do you set something up without having to have the full business. Yeah. So
I love the idea. That's a really creative way of getting around that problem too. It takes out of the box thinking. I'm a spreadsheet person. I probably would not have thought that globally of how to test those ideas. So
have to answer those big questions first. That's the important thing.
So regrets. So if you look back on your journey, I'm sure we all have things that we would have done just a little bit differently. Is there something that you can point to or kind of think about where you're like, oh, I wish I had done that just a little differently?
I think being less afraid to have hard conversations. Mm-hmm. It's difficult to have hard conversations. And, I would say, if something wasn't done right, then sometimes I would just do it myself because it was easier. And then what would happen was I would be wearing myself out instead of fixing the situation or, that sort of thing. So again, that's just something you learn with time. So I think, being able to have hard conversations sometimes with others or that to make sure that things are working, because in the end, everyone benefits.
Yeah.
It's hard in the moment, but it can produce a better outcome for everyone. And then everyone can be in a better situation and feel more fulfilled with what they're doing. So I think that's something I've learned as a leader is learning how to have hard conversations, and I'm still figuring it out. Every hard conversation is a little bit different. So,
well, I was just going to ask, how did you learn? Did you read is there a book on that I could maybe?
Yeah, there are books on that. I can't think of the names of them right now, but some of it is just acknowledging what's your own roadblock and being able to not have this conversation, right? Or just things that we procrastinate in general, right? It doesn't have to be a conversation. Just look at what things you're putting off and just recognizing either way you're going to have a negative outcome, and why are you accepting one negative outcome over the other if the other one's better. So kind of addressing that and learning from it.
So self-reflection, kind of like having hard conversations with yourself so that you can have hard conversations with someone else.
Yeah. And they even say naming the emotion can help you control it better. So you can say, right now, I'm feeling really anxious. And, right now I'm really worried about how this conversation might go, or, those sorts of things. Being able to name it and call it out can be really helpful to just acknowledge, yes, this is a difficult situation, but this situation doesn't have to last forever. Also discovered some really good advice about journaling. And the specific thing was leave some space under a journal entry for you to follow up to say what you've learned after that thing happened.
What a good idea.
The interesting thing about that is what I've noticed is things get resolved much quicker than I think they will. Because I thought, this is going to be something that's going to be a dark cloud for months or, whatever. And then no, actually 5 days later, things were already much better than they were before, something like that. And I wasn't necessarily putting those things together because we tend to hold the negative memories with us more, right? That's our survival instinct, is learn from things that hurt you. And so we're going to learn by focusing on that stuff instead of learn from the things that didn't challenge your survival. And we're just thinking about good things all the time, right? That's how our survival brain works.
Yeah.
And so journaling can help you kind of recognize your survival brain is not very good at remembering things or connecting the dots together. But it can also help you learn, that I remember that time where I wasn't quite sure what was going to happen next. Here's how it turned out. And you can start to connect those dots. So that's been an interesting thing that, I'm not great at journaling, but I have an app that you can just kind of dictate at the end of the day and say, hey, I did this and blah, 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 blah. But then I can go back to that journal entry and say, okay, here's an update and, talk about here's what I learned from that. I think that's a much more interesting journal to kind of see so-and-so face this situation. If someone else is reading my journal decades from now, then they can see, this is the thing that happened and this is how she interpreted it. And this is what she felt like she learned from it.
Sure.
That can be a useful guide for somebody else.
That's really interesting. That tugs. I read a book about deep learning and that practice of making the mistake, kind of going back, figuring out why the mistake was made, and then practicing until you get it right. And they were talking about, I don't know, doing sports or playing an instrument. But I think that what you've described is kind of that same sort of thing in a business situation, that deep practice, that deep learning.
And some things take a long time. Sometimes we live with things that are outstanding for quite a while. And we're like, when is this thing going to get resolved? Right. And then sometimes we have a shorter situation that comes up, but being able to say, okay, here's what I'm learning from this, or here's what I've decided I'm not doing next time. Those sorts of things can be helpful. Just kind of look back our thinking previously, but just the act of having to write something down can really help you kind of externalize it. So it's not so internal and bouncing around inside.
I love that. I really love that concept. I think I'm going to start with that. I think that's a really good idea. Yeah. So if you could go back and talk to your younger self, 20, 21, 22, and tell her something, what would you want to tell?
I'd say, go for it. It's going to be an adventure.
The journey is well worth it.
Yeah, definitely.
So what scared you the most when you started out on your journey? What What was the scariest part?
With the business, you're always looking to make sure everything gets funded. But I think because I was so focused on the work I was doing, I think I was a little bit like positively naive about things, if that makes sense. Looking back, how did I survive on that amount of money? It doesn't make any sense. But I think it can be real easy to kind of stare at a balance sheet and get freaked out by that. And then that paralyzes you. And then you're not able to do the things to actually change what you want to have change on that balance sheet. So being able to let go of some things and just do your best and trust and move forward can be really helpful, because I think this fear of failure can actually lead us to the failure itself if we let it own us. And so being able to have a healthy view of reality, but to also be able to be open to the possibilities. Years ago, I heard a great piece of advice that said, sometimes the evidence of the past is not the right predictor of our future. But we're ingrained to think that way. So if we've had a certain outcome with a particular situation every single time, we start to set up this mentality of like, well, this is how it will always be. And then that's how it continues to unfold. So being able to recognize just because something has happened that way in the past, that doesn't mean that that's how it will happen in the future. You absolutely learn from those experiences and, be realistic and anticipate problems and all of that. Use all the wisdom you've gathered from those experiences. But don't let the evidence of the past be the evidence of the future, because the future doesn't have that evidence yet.
Yeah.
So
be hopeful. It could be different. And as you're learning from those things in the past, that inevitably makes your future just a little bit different because you do things differently the next time.
Exactly.
So I like that. I like that idea. Yeah. As you look forward and kind of think about what you want, you have to have a sense of hope. The reality sometimes can be harsh, but if you have that sense of optimism and hope, and I don't think anyone would try anything if they didn't have those dreams.
Yeah, exactly.
What about, this is interesting because you're CEO and it's your own business, but did you face any unique challenges because you were a woman?
Oh, definitely.
Tell me about those.
Right. I haven't always just been a CEO, and it's not like you put on a CEO badge and then the world's like, oh, great, we're going to treat you like that. So I think there's kind of two pieces of that. One is, I think, recognizing the current systems that have historically led us to how we interact with each other in society, recognizing how those systems have worked, how they have made assumptions about how people might think of you, but also how you might be thinking of yourself that you've not really considered has been influenced by those systems, right? So I realized that some of the things that were holding me back from, really stepping into my role as CEO is that I saw it as like a male role. And I didn't see that that's how I was seeing it. Because I consider myself very much like women can do anything. But looking back, I'm like, I think some of what was holding me back was feeling like, ooh, how am I going to find my place in this? And I wasn't quite able to pin it down to, this is kind of a gender thing. This is a little bit of the patriarchy, like influencing this, right? And also like feeling mom guilt and those sorts of things. But people don't interview a CEO that's a man and say, how are you balancing this work-life balance? Do you feel dad guilt, right? Those questions don't come up. So just kind of recognizing that if that question wouldn't be posed to the opposite sex, then maybe reconsider why you're holding on to those things, maybe subconsciously, because we're so influenced by the environment that we're in. Sometimes I would hold back just because how we see roles of women can be a little limiting. And sometimes we kind of fit into those roles for social acceptance, not really recognizing that's what we're doing. I don't know if that's making a lot of sense, but
yeah, no, it does. And sometimes I feel like as women, we tell ourselves these things. Other people, sometimes they don't tell us these messages, but we tell ourselves these messages.
Yeah, exactly. And I think just like learning that there are lots of different ways to lead. Like I lead my organization as a designer. So I approach it a little bit differently. We're always kind of building things and tweaking things and testing things out with a lot of experimentation and that sort of thing. Where someone else would be very kind of numbers led to start off a project. So I'm kind of like numbers are at the end. And so kind of like pulling those two things together. But women as leaders, we can have different styles of leading. And so looking at how we lead as women, like, for example, a lot of women on my team have young kids. And so they're on Zoom sometimes, or people need flexible schedules for different things that come up. And that's really important to me, is that people are able to have a flexible schedule. They're still able to put in the time every week, but that it can work around the things that crop up. Whereas some companies it's not legal, but they'd be like, they've got young kids. I think this is going to be really disruptive to our business. Instead of finding ways to let the business work with what someone who's raising young kids would need. So thinking through those ways of leading is important too.
Yeah, I agree. I think that women in finance, there's like 20% female financial advisors. And part of the reason is because the situation and the way that we're set up is so that it's a 9 to 5. This is the way you show up all the time. These are the things you have to do. And they don't give that flexibility for, young kids or caretakers, or I've had pets that require a lot of energy. And I really appreciate looking how different industries are dealing with those sorts of challenges with their workforce so that women can show up and give their best selves there at work, because they know that they can do it at 6 o'clock in the morning before they go to the orthodontist.
Yeah, exactly. And I think with COVID and doing remote work, women have been asking for this more flexible schedule for quite some time. There was very little belief that could be doable. But then when men were forced to do that schedule, and then they were able to see the benefits of it. I know I'm presenting this as very black and white. It's not that way. But when a lot of the decision makers, who are mostly men, could actually see, yes, it's very possible to do remote work, and we have to make some adjustments, but we can still be very functional as a company. That's really, I think, opened up the way for much more flexible ways of working, so that women who are the primary caregivers are able to be more involved in their fields and make more of an impact. Whereas before, there was this doorway of, well, you can only get involved if you can be at the office 40 hours a week. And especially in finance, hours with like the Big Four and stuff like that, there's no room for family in any of that. So
yeah,
as women, we tend to be very focused on our families and want to make sure that we have schedules that can align with that as much as possible. So it's really neat to see how that kind of rigidity has broken up to really open the doorway for more people.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's really interesting to watch how workplaces are becoming more accommodating so that they get the talent and the piece that women bring, but haven't been able to because they couldn't give 40 hours between the hours of, 9 and 5 every single day.
Exactly.
So, Corrine, tell me, what is the thing you are most proud of?
I'm really proud of my daughter, of course. She has really been my buddy through all of this, really understanding. She's fantastic. And I'm really proud of the team that I've built. My team works so hard and we all get along. We're all really happy and excited with the work that we're doing. And so I'm really proud of this organization that's growing, and all the people in it. Our volunteers are incredible. Just the people that I get to meet because of this work, and how this mission, this idea is pulling everyone together. It's so amazing to see these lemons around the world. So
have you ever shown up somewhere and you saw one of your marketing pieces and you didn't even
Yeah. And I have friends who will take pictures of hey, I got my mammogram today and your poster was on the wall. Oh, that's great. That's wonderful. So yeah, things show up, and then we get people that share their story with us to say how they were able to find their breast cancer because of something I designed. That's really meaningful to me. That's what keeps me going. It's a great excuse to keep pouring more time into work, because I'm well, if I spend more time on work, I could save more lives. But That's the thing I have to recognize and be like, no. I have a life too. Let's be balanced. But that's the nice thing is that there's such a amazing reward in this work.
Yeah. And being able to see that so clearly, the impact that you're making in people's lives, that's so fulfilling.
Yeah, absolutely. I also designed an app. So if people do one thing after this podcast, it would be this thing I'm about to say, which is download our free Know Your Lemons app. Mm-hmm. It's award-winning. It's helped people understand how to do self-exams the right way, help them understand what they're feeling, right? Breasts are lumpy by nature. And so it could be really confusing for someone to say, feel for a lump. And you're like,
they're lumpy.
Everything feels lumpy, right? So we've got an audio guide with Mona Lisa that talks you through how to do a self-exam. She's really fun, and it will send you monthly reminders to do your self-exam so you don't forget. There's also a screening assessment on there, so you can put in all these different risk factors. It will teach you what risk factors are for breast cancer. And then you can have a conversation with your doctor to make sure you're on the right screening plan based on your health, your risk factors. And it's fun. It's free. And if you do one thing for your health today, it's download this free app and it will send you reminders. We also have a period tracker on there. We don't collect any health data, but it will send you a reminder to self-exam at the right time during your menstrual cycle. If you're menstruating, if you're not menstruating, then we've got something set up for that as well. But it will also send you a reminder a few days before your period begins to order chocolate. So we think that's really good.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And maybe share with your daughters too, because it's never too early.
Yep, exactly. We are working on a schools program right now, which we're really excited about, where teachers will be able to offer a breast health lesson in high schools. Because we use lemons, you don't see breasts as part of the lesson, which is really great. But students have the assignment to go home and talk to their family about their cancer history in their family, and also learn, our family members getting screened. If not, how can we positively encourage them to take care of themselves and keep up on those mammograms? So we know that it'll be students helping to save lives in their own families as a result of this program, which we're excited about. So I know as we've been talking about this on the podcast, people will probably be thinking, what are these lemons? Things like that. So if you go to knowyourlemons.org, you'll be able to see these really amazing visuals that teach what breast cancer can look and feel like, what breast anatomy looks like, all with these fun lemon graphics that will teach you quite a bit. And we're also on social media. We're always educating on social media every day with fun little facts. And we're just at Know Your Lemons on all of the social channels, and of course, LinkedIn.
Yeah, I love it. I do love the visuals. It's just so cute and pretty and fun. It makes it not scary and hard. So I love that.
Yeah, I'll add a little fun to your social media feed by following us. And we've had so many people that have said, someone shared this image with me on social media, and a couple years later, I noticed something and I remembered seeing that picture because it's so memorable. And they were diagnosed early because that friend shared the image. So being able to do that is amazing, and it only takes a few seconds. So we've got we have 3 pinned images on Instagram at the top. So if you go to our account at Know Your Lemons.
And I'll go ahead and put links to all of these things in the podcast notes so everyone can sign up. I encourage that. I think that's great. Corrine, our last question is, any advice for a young lady who's just starting down on her journey that can help her be successful like you were?
Find a skill that you really are wanting to develop, that you love, that brings you joy. And then think about a particular group of people that you want to impact and combine those two things. So for me, I really love graphic design. And so I, really developed that skill. And then for me, something that personally mattered were the people I'd lost in my family to breast cancer. So I thought, well, how can I combine design and women who need to know about their health into this one thing, with that as kind of like the guiding star of my goal, that all these amazing things have come out because of that. And being able to develop the skills, like business skills, are really important. Learning how to read that profit and loss.
Well, I'm in agreement with that one.
Here we go. Yeah. Right. So you need financial skills. You understand how money works. that sort of thing. But don't feel intimidated by kind of all of the things you may have seen about business before. There's lots of ways to run a business. There's so many tools that make it easy to do it now. Spend some time in QuickBooks and learn how to organize your finances and like all kinds of things. If you're handing it off to other people, you don't quite learn those things. So it's really good that if you have someone, for example, if you're working with an accountant, you say, okay, I want to understand why things are organized the way they are. Can you tell me why it's set up like this? What is, something you look for? And then also for a business, be thinking about what your exit strategy would be. Is your plan to run the business to sell it to someone else or retire? Is your plan to run the business to sell it so you can start another business, something else? I think sometimes businesses are treated like hobbies where they cost a lot of money, but they're not really bringing in a lot of money. And that's kind of the difference between a hobby and a business. A hobby is something you love to do and you pour a lot of money into it and you don't really mind if money's coming back. But a business is not a hobby. It's about you generating funds and revenue from that business to help you build and grow and scale and do more with it. So that's kind of the biggest thing I've seen with a lot of like small businesses is that they're being treated like hobbies instead of businesses. And, they don't want to ask too much money of people and things like that. I'm like, then this is a hobby. It's not a business yet. So you have to think in how to make financial sense, not just enough to keep it going, but enough for it to grow and scale and thrive.
You hit on my passion there. That is, it's so important to me that people that maybe haven't had a lot of financial knowledge, a lot of business knowledge, they are able to, I love educating and helping them to get to that place where they're like, oh, I can do this. So but I do run into a lot of times, I run into people who are running, they don't know exactly what they're doing with business. And so it's nice to have those resources available to help out, kind of guide you down the path.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you so much for your time today, Corrine.
Yeah, this was great conversation. I enjoyed it.
I really appreciate it. And we'll put all those links for places that they can find you and what you do and read more about you and know their limits. So
wonderful. Thank you so much, Lori.
Thanks. I appreciate it.